Have you ever wanted that you will change the content of a web page at your will? Imagine adding, modifying, removing elements dynamically, moving them from one side of the UI to the another side of the UI without touching your HTML at all using the script JavaScript. Well, today you are about to become a JavaScript DOM professional because we are going to learn about the DOM manipulation. We will be learning a lot of stuff like how to create elements, how to modify elements, how to do styling with it, how to navigate from parent to child, child to parent, and everything. By the end of this video, you will not only master all these techniques, but also will do a project along with me. And not only that, I'll end this video with a task for you. If you do that after going through this session, I'm sure that you're going to be a very, very comfortable developer who can deal with DOM and its manipulation using JavaScript. Hey, this is Tapas. Welcome back to the day 18 of 40 days of JavaScript. And we are in the module 3. We have already learned what is DOM, how to query DOM, how to deal with it with dev tools and all these things in the last video. Today, taking it forward with more awesome and fantastic thing with DOM manipulation. Let's get started. But first, let's understand what are you going to learn. We will start the session with understanding how to create elements dynamically using DOM APIs. Then about inserting elements, we will learn about modifying content, removing elements, how to read, write and remove attributes. We have learned what is element, what is node, what is attribute, everything in the last video. Then traversing through the DOM, one of the main aspect about making your page dynamic. You have to come from parent to child, child to grandchild, grandchild to their sibling, again from there to the parent, from there to the grandparent, and so on. So how to do all these things programmatically is what we are going to learn. We will be learning to manipulate styles. By the way, in the last video, we have already started learning about manipulating styles, and we have seen that heavily in two projects that we have done together. Then we'll be learning about manipulating classes. That will be a new thing. We learn about controlling visibility. A bit of it I have already taught you in one of the project in the last video, but we are going to do it much more deeper, and then we are going to build projects. So one funny factor about all the DOM videos, or most of the DOM videos I should rather say, in this module, that they will be always ending with projects. This is required because DOM is all about being dynamic. DOM is all about creation. And if we just do the theory, don't do the project, I think it doesn't make much sense. But theory is important. Understanding each of these concepts are important with example and use cases, and then take them together to build certain projects. After that, we are going to learn about what is the task for today, and then going to end this session. I hope you enjoy it. And if you're already enjoying it, don't forget to like it. Don't forget to post a comment. You are going to enjoy this video. And of course, subscribe if you haven't done already, because that gives me a great support and motivation. Thank you. Here is my simple HTML, which got the HTML tag, then the head, inside that meta, title, script, etc., and a body, and inside body there is a h1 and p. We have learned what is the difference between a node and an element in the last video. We have seen this diagram as well. Here, each of the circle represents a node, right? And among all this node, there are certain nodes which represents the elements in the HTML. Those are element type node. We know that. Beyond that, there will be text type node, there will be element type node. We'll see all of this in this video as well. But the main point over here, in this particular HTML file, all these elements are already there. And when this web page gets loaded on the browser, the DOM has created for each of these elements. But how can we create an element dynamically? Here elements are statically placed and the DOM creation happened for this. But I want to create an element dynamically. How am I going to do that? That's where creating elements come into picture. To create an element, you have an API in the document object. It's called create element. The create element API is going to create the element type node. It means that you are going to create some node which represents an element in the HTML, just like a paragraph. So it means that if I do document.create element and pass p, I will be able to create a paragraph element to add to my web page. So first let's see what it returns. Const plm equals to document.createElement, and then do console.log of plm. I see a paragraph getting created over here. And if I expand, I can see a bunch of attributes for this paragraph. If I go and check its prototype, it is a HTML paragraph element. So it means I have created an HTML paragraph element which gets represented using the tag P in your HTML, and once it gets added to your DOM tree, it will appear along with its text. So two things I told. One, adding to your DOM tree. Second, appearing with its text, because in the paragraph you usually put the text. Now, how do you add the text to this paragraph? It means that I'm talking about adding content for this element. There are varieties of way that you can add content. We're going to get deeper dive into that. But for now, let's learn one of the methodology through which you can do this. So I'll do PLM, which is my paragraph element, dot, you can use an attribute called inner text. And this is a funny attribute because if this appears at the left side of your assignment operator, which is equal, you will be setting value to an element using inner text. If the inner text appears at the right side of your assignment operator, that means you are going to fetch value from an element. Okay, as it is appearing at the left side of your equal sign assignment operator, it means if you give any text over here, say this is a text added dynamically, you're saying this. So it means now I am adding a text to this paragraph. Next thing pending, the second thing pending is like attaching this paragraph to the DOM. Let's go back to the DOM picture again. Our DOM looks like this. We have a document, HTML head. We are not going to do much with that. Then there is a body. I have a H1, I have a P. Now I want to add this new paragraph that I have created in the body. That means I want to attach it over here. So this new P will come. I have marked a dash just to show the differentiation between the existing one and the one that I'm going to add. So it will come up over here. That means I have to attach it to the body. Now to access body, you should always traverse from the root nodes. Then I'll be doing document.body, and in the document.body, I have to append this new node somewhere. Now to do that, the API that I'll be using now is document.body.append_child. So there is an API called append_child through which you can append a child node to the parent node. Okay, and here I'll be passing this PLM. So now this particular element, this is a text added dynamically, will be added to the HTML body. I'll comment it for a while. I'll go back to my UI. Check now, you are not seeing this text, right? That paragraph yet, because I have commented it out. Now let me uncomment. You will find a new paragraph getting added. This is a text added dynamically. Do you see this? Now this one you won't find in your HTML because your HTML source code having statically added elements. This is the one you have added dynamically. Fun, isn't it? You are bringing dynamic behavior. You are creating dynamic elements and adding them to the web page. So this is about the create element. Now let's learn about inserting element and what's the difference between them. While creating an element and appending that element to a node helps you to attach something into the DOM hierarchy, but inserting an element before an existing element or after an existing element dynamically will give you more dynamic nature of it, right? For example, I have this index.html file and here I have this body tag. Inside that there is a h1 and the p. Dynamically, I want to create an element that you know how to do it, document.createElement, and insert that element before this p tag. Okay, or insert that element after this p tag. How can I do it? If I do document.body.appendChild like this, that is going to get appended always at the end of the body, isn't it? But I want it between h1 and p. That means before the p tag or after the h1 tag. Before and after, how can I do it? Let's do insert before first. So let us create a span element. How to create an element? You know already, document.createElement, and you pass span to it. So you have the span, and then let's add inner text just like last time so that you can identify the span on the web page. We'll say I am a span and I am interested to add this span before this p tag. Now how can we do this? Using something called a insert before method. How does the insert before method works? Insert before, it takes two arguments. One is the element that I want to add, that is the span, and what is the reference element to which I want to add it. Now my reference element is this p tag. I want to add this new tag before this p tag. So that means I have to first get this p tag. I have to first access this p tag. One of the method is document.querySelector, and I can pass this p tag. So the first matching p will be retrieved, and then I can take that inside a variable called plm, and now I can pass this plm over here. So it means I'm saying in the reference of this p tag, insert this span tag before this. But there is one more catch, and that is where many developers make a mistake. They do simply document dot insert before. What will happen if I do document dot insert before? I get this error. It says uncaught not found error, fail to execute insert before on node. The node before which the new node is to be inserted is not a child of this node. This is a crazy error. It's actually blow my mind and brain. What it's trying to say in plain English is you are trying to add this span to this p. That's great. This p is not directly belonging to this document node. That's what it's saying. This paragraph's direct parent is not this document. So if I see in the hierarchy also over here, this p's parent is who? Is the body. It's never the document. So that means if I have to add that new element before or after anywhere, my reference point to add that would be the paragraph tag, but I have to invoke that function that insert before on p's parent. P's parent is who? Is the body, not the document. So to solve this error, I'll go to index.js. I have to do document.body.insert before. Now this will work. If we keep this p tag inside another div or some other tag, you have to give that particular tag reference over here to call the insert before. It should be always the parent of the reference node adjacent to which you are going to insert a new tag. You should always think in that way. Okay. Now I should see this new guy should get added. Yes, I am a span has got added. If I inspect this guy, I will see this span has got added before p. Excellent. If I want before h1, simple. You can do it, right? Practice it. Let's add this span before h1. That's your task. Do it. As we learned about insert before, we might think that there is something called insert after, but unfortunately we don't have anything called insert after. At least I'm not aware of so far while making this video. But we can definitely simulate insert after using insert before and another property called next sibling element. So we are going to learn, of course, next sibling element, but let's talk about what is sibling. If I go to the HTML, I have h1, I have p. Here p is the sibling of h1. Now, if I don't have anything, there is no more next sibling of p. P is the next sibling of h1. There is no next sibling of p. Now, if I add a h2 over here, now this h2 is the next sibling element of this p. I can do that. I can do console.log of p element dot next element sibling. This is going to return h2. Fair enough. I can see h2 over here. So this is what keep in mind. But in case the h2 is not there, this is going to give me a null. Okay. Now I don't need this console.log. I'll just remove this. Now one more thing to remember along with it. This reference node is pretty important. We know that for insert before, you have to give the reference node on whose reference this new span should be inserted before. If you don't want to give any reference, if you don't have any reference, you still have to pass something called null. If you pass null, what will happen? Basically, you have this document.body, isn't it? In this document.body, you are inserting this particular span, but you have not given any reference. This will be added to the end of this body. So it means the body is having h1p. Now after p, that is going to get added. If I see over here h1p and then this span got added. Okay. So one of the way that you can push now using the next element sibling, as p element dot next element sibling doesn't have any other sibling after that. If you pass plm dot next element sibling, it will be null. So it will be added again after p means at the end, right? First h1, p and then the span. Now, if I add a h2 like before, that means now h1 is there. H1's next sibling element is p. P's next element sibling is h2. Now what will happen? plm.next element sibling will be h2. So now I'm saying on body, on the reference of h2, add this span before that. So on the reference of h2, inside the body, add a span before h2. So between p and h2, I'll be adding a span. It is in other way, adding after p. Though you are adding before h2 here, it means that you are adding after p. So I'm taking advantage of the next element sibling, go to my next sibling and adding it before that, so that it goes and gets sandwiched between me and my own sibling. So now if I go to here, I can see this IMS span is basically after the p now. See, after p, this span got added and then this h2. If this h2 is not there, by default it is null. So it will, by logic, it will get added to the parents node last element. So by default, the span would have been the last anyways. I hope this is clear to you. The insert thing, it is little bit different, little bit tricky than the create element. You are able to do insert before, and using the insert before and next element sibling, you are able to simulate insert after as well. I hope it makes sense to you. Now let's learn about modifying content. How can we modify the content? One way you have already learned using the inner text. Now there is another property called innerHTML property. So that particular property allows you to read and update, just like inner text, both read and update the content but in more structured format. What does it mean by more structured format? You can actually specify the complete markup using innerHTML while adding or modifying the content of your element. How can you do that? Let's do it. I already have a p tag over here which says hope you are enjoying 40 days of JavaScript. So what will happen if I just query that using document.query selector, you already know, and then do a console.log of p.innerHTML. Let's see what it prints. This gives me hope you are enjoying 40 days of JavaScript, the content part of that p tag. Right now, if you want to change it or you want to set something to it, instead of doing the console.log, now just like inner text, if it is in the left side of the assignment operator, that means you are setting some value. Hello, how are you doing? So now hope you're enjoying 40 days of JavaScript will be replaced with this particular text because we are doing on that paragraph inner HTML and setting a value. I'm saying hello, how are you doing? Then what is the difference between an inner text and inner HTML? Look like they're doing the same thing. No. In case of inner HTML, now you can do HTML over here. So hello, how, I am now enclosing with an underline tag which represented using u. Now this hello how will be treated as part of your HTML body in a way that this hello how will be underlined because this is inside the u element. You see that hello how are you doing? Hello how is inside the u element, so it is underlined. But instead of doing this inner HTML, if you just change this to inner text, you will see the real difference now. You see, now that u tag along with the text inside the u tag has printed just like a plain string. This is no more treated as an HTML that can be rendered on the browser. So if you want to dynamically put some HTML element that you want to render on your browser, you must be using something called inner HTML. In that case, you will see it rendered like HTML. So that's the difference between inner HTML and inner text. Now, while inner HTML is a fascinating thing for you to put HTML on your web browser and render it, but you have to be careful about the security risk that is associated with inner HTML. Using inner HTML very openly means you are welcoming potential security risk, especially the cross-site scripting attack, which is also known as XSS, cross-site scripting attack, in which a hacker can inject any malicious string or a script in your application that gets executed without you are even noticing it and can perform certain things that is very unexpected to you. How a hacker can put this thing? For example, you are having a form that is having bunch of text field at the text area, and you are accepting input from user. Once you accept the input from user, you are reading those input, and then maybe somewhere on your page using .innerHTML you are trying to show those input. Now if a hacker want, they can inject a malicious input into those text area or text box, and if you have not taken care of the part of the security, those malicious script may get executed as part of inner HTML wherever you are setting those value that you're reading from the text area or text box. Now to save yourself from that, either don't use inner HTML, or if you use inner HTML, make sure to use libraries like DOM Purify. That's a DOM only library, right? That is for XSS to sanitize your HTML in a great way. So you can always include purify.js file in your script. So that gives you DOM purify. In that, the sanitize API is there. You can pass the user input, whatever you're grabbing from the form, to the sanitize method, and you get a clean version of it. That you can now push it to your inner HTML. So this is what you need to keep in mind when you are dealing with inner HTML. There are certain amount of security and the sensitivity around it. Now, apart from inner HTML and inner text, there is one more way you can modify the content. There is another property called text content. So let's deal with text content now. To demonstrate the difference between inner text and the text content, I have done some changes over here. I had this h2, right? This h2 tag I have put now inside this div, a new div. And h2 has a property called style, and I'm saying it's a display none. Display none means it will be there in the DOM, but it won't appear on the web page. So if I go to the page right now, I don't see that h2 at all. But if I inspect, I definitely see this div tag, and inside the div tag, I definitely see this h2 with style display none. Now coming to the code, I have document.querySelector, this div. That means I am picking up this particular div. Inside the div, there is a h2 with text test, but most importantly, there is a style display none. Now let's add to console.log to see the difference. The first console.log says inner text div element dot inner text. Next one says text content div element dot text content. What will be the output difference between them? What inner text is going to print, what text element going to print. What I'm expecting, I'm doing a div element dot inner text. That means inside div element, whatever is there, that particular text as a text, I want to get it, right? I want to get the content as a text. Here also, using text content, using inside div tag, whatever the content is there, I want to get it as a text. Both the cases, my output expectation is same. But let's see what is the out. In console, I see inner text, but I don't see anything. In case of text content, I see a next line which says test. Do you see the difference? It is because in case of inner text, we consider CSS visibility. The CSS visibility is none here. It is display none. So that means it is not shown on the web page. If it is not shown on the web page, the CSS visibility is not there means inner text is not going to show you the output as well. So that's the reason for inner text, we are not seeing anything being printed. But in terms of the text content, it is not the case. That's not going to consider the CSS visibility at all. What it is going to give you, it is going to give you whatever is there inside this tag as a text content. That is where you are seeing the test as a text inside this. I hope this is very much clear. Let's talk about removing elements from DOM. Let's create an unordered list with a bunch of list item. Let's use Emmets for that, ul, and then let's create 5 LIs. This will create an ul li with 5 LIs. Let's add some text to each of the list item. Great. So I have created a ul li, and of course I want to add an ID also to this guy. So ULLI is ready. Have you seen that I have created this ULLI with a shortcut, Emmets shortcut? If you're not using Emmets much, I would say that please use it. It is going to make you a lot productive developer. I've created a video on Emmets some time back, an old video though. You can still check that out. The video link is in the description of this video, and then you will be able to learn the shortcuts and be more productive. Okay, so I have this ULLI list. Now what I'm going to do over here, first of all, I'm going to access the list using document.getElementById and passing this my list. My list is nothing but this ID. So I have this UL with me. Now my intention is to remove the first list item from this list. So I want to remove this particular LI. To do that, I have to first access the first children of this UL. If I had the ID of this LI, I could have removed it directly, but I am not interested in that. In many cases, you will have the ID of the parent, and from there you have to grab a child and then you have to remove that child. I'm going to show you that use case first. So I'm already talking about the DOM traversing. From parent, I have to go to a child. On parent node, you will find a method called children. I'm going to talk about children in much more depth in a minute, but for now, you consider it in this way. If you have this list, and if you do console.log of list.children, this will give you an HTML collection of all the list items, all the children. I'm not getting into again what is HTML collection. We have learned enough in the array course and even in the last video. So I have got a collection to iterate through. That means as it is an array like, it has this indexed element. So if I do this particular HTML collection index 0, I'll get the first li, isn't it? So next thing that I'm going to do is this list dot children, which gives me an HTML collection array like. From here, the first element will be 0. So this is the first element that I can pick up, and I'll say this is my item to remove. After that, from my list, the UL, I'll call a method called remove child and then pass the child that I want to remove. That's all you need to do to remove a children from a parent. Before invoking this remove child, if I see the UI once, I'm seeing this A, B, C, D, all of them. Now I want to remove the first child, which is A, the first item in the list. So I'll bring back my code for remove child. Now if I go to DOM, definitely I won't see A because A is gone now, right? Now this is the way with the DOM traversing or the DOM navigation, you can remove a children, but you can still remove things directly also. For example, now let's take another div again. I am going to be removed, and let's give it an ID saying that remove me. Now I can do document dot get element by ID, pass this particular ID, which is like remove me. So this is going to give me this entire div, isn't it? We know that. Now if you want to remove this div, you just call dot remove. So this div will be removed from the DOM. So before calling this dot remove, let us first see whether this got added correctly or not. So I see I'm going to be removed is got added before this list BCDE list. Now if I just add this remove, I won't be able to see this guy anymore on my DOM. It's gone. Now are you getting it slowly? Like imagine you have a button now. I have already taught you in the last video how to add a click handler on the button. One of the ways. Other ways will come to know in the future session when you go into events in depth. So click on a button now. You can insert an element before an element, after an element. You can remove an element. You can do all these things because you know all this logic. Now think about this logic building slowly. Think about doing this small stuff. Put a button, add a click handler, have a ULLI, grab the list from their remove a list item on clicking on a button. So the last thing about remove that I can teach you is how about removing everything. So for example, this list itself, I have removed just one element. What if you have to remove all the elements? One of the way that you can take care of this problem is by iterating through each of the HTML collection that we have got. It's like looping through the every child, and then you just remove the thing, right? That could be one way that you can do it. What is the other simplistic way? Another way that you can do it that will also work. So for example, if you have this list, means the UL with you, if you don't want to do this remove child over here, you can just do list dot inner text equals to blank. What happened in that case? You had this ULLI over there, right? Now you don't have it anymore. Everything has got removed. So if you see this, if you go to inspect, you go inside this body, you have H1, you have div, you have UL, but there is nothing inside this UL. All the LIs are gone. Similarly, you can also do text content equals to blank. That is also going to do the same thing. But there is a method that got introduced very recently, which is called replace children. So the replace children method, usually how it works, it replaces children with another bunch of DOM nodes. Okay, so how it works, if I go to list, instead of this text content and all, I can now do replace children. The replace children takes a bunch of parameters. It can take any number of parameters. Basically, it is going to replace your this list or this elements on which you are invoking replace children with all the node that you are passing in a comma separated way. For example, if you pass param1 comma param2, if param1 is an array of nodes, if param2 is array of nodes, it means that the list existing children will be replaced with param1, param2 and so on. But another thing is, if you don't pass anything, just keep it blank, this is going to remove all the children of this list. So now before calling this, I should be able to see the list A, B, C, D, E. Now if I go and do list.replace children without passing anything, if I come back to the UI, I won't be able to see this at all. If I go to the DOM, expand the body, I'm seeing the UL, but there is no LI inside it. So this is another method. It's a very newly introduced. I think it's introduced in a couple of years back. With replace children, you can do it. But at the same time, if you are passing a bunch of node here, maybe div hello div. Let's see the output in this case. So inside UL, now I got a div hello div as a text node. So let's go do an inspect. So you see inside UL, I now have a div hello div as a new node. There was bunch of li, but those li got replaced with the text node because I have given it inside the string. Now, if you want to dynamically put another element inside that, inside this particular list, you cannot give it in this string way. You have to pass the element itself. So let's take that p element, right? I'll copy this p element from here. I'll retrieve this p element and put it over here. So p element document.query selector. Now I want to replace all those lists using this p element. Let's see if this works. Do you see this? I have that. Hope you're enjoying 40 days of JavaScript instead of all those. If I go to inspect, I will see inside UL, now I have a p tag. My all the list tag has gone because that got replaced using this p tag. You can pass as many elements as you want using the comma separated form. That many elements will be replacing the existing elements inside this parent element. So the replace element is also useful in terms of removing and replacing. So what we have learned, removing slash I'll say replacing elements. After dealing with elements a lot, let us now read, write and remove attributes. So what are attributes? Imagine you have an image tag. Now in image tag, you can have src as an attribute which says the source of the image that you are planning to display on the web page. Let's say some image.png, and along with that you can also add an alt tag, an alternate text for the accessibility purpose, which you say some image. Now these two things are the attribute of the image tag. So you see this image has got added. Of course, I have not given a correct path and the name of the image, so it's showing as a broken image, and I'm already seeing an error here that my image is not found because there's nothing called some image.png. But one good thing is like it's showing the alt text. That's the whole purpose of the alt text, because image is not found. For the accessibility purpose, it's showing the description of that image. So far good, it's got added. Now I can query that image using document.query selector. We know that. Let's put this in a image element. Now this image is having two attributes. One is src, another is alt. I can read them now using a method called getAttribute. So I can do console.log of image_element.getAttribute, and here to get the attribute value of an attribute, I'll pass the attribute name. So I have passed the src, so I should get some image.png in my console.log. I have some image.png. Similarly, if I have to read the value of alt, I will definitely get the alt tag value now, which is some space image, some space image. So this is how you can get an attribute value by passing the attribute name. Similarly, you can also set an attribute like getting to an element. How can you do that? We have this src value to the some image.png, which we know is probably broken and all these things. Now I want to dynamically change this src value to something to fix that image. So for that purpose, I will do image lm dot now set attribute, which takes two parameters. The first is the attribute name for which you want to set the value, that is src, and then I want to set it to the new image, which I know that will work, is called banner.png. Now let's see whether from broken image I can see a real image over there. Oh yes, I can see from the broken image a real image, which is the cover image of this video itself, is appearing over here. Similarly, I can change the alt attribute value as well and say this is a banner. Now if I go to the UI and inspect this image, I should see src is the banner.png, and of course alt tag is the banner. I hope it makes sense, both get and set attributes. This image is too big, isn't it? So we have to specify some height and width, I guess. So I'll go to index.html file and let me specify some height, maybe 200 pixel, and a width which say 200 pixel. Now I go back to the UI. I'm able to see a 200 pixel image got placed. Excellent. Now, as I have added a height and width new properties to this, new attributes to this, let me demonstrate how the remove attribute work. So just like set and get on the element, you can call something called a remove attribute, and then you pass the attribute that you want to remove. Let's say I want to pass height. Now let's go to UI first. You see that the image was 200 and 200 pixel was a little bit cramped because 1:1 was the ratio. Now the height part has gone. It has only the width. Okay. So if I inspect this, I will see image is having src and alt and only width. There is no height. Okay. So height I have removed using the remove attribute method. There is one more method might be handy sometime for some conditional statement. It's called has attribute. You can check whether an element has an attribute or not. So for that, image element dot has attribute, if I do src, I will always get true. If I do image element dot has attribute height, I'll definitely get false because height is no more available. We have removed it, right? This is all about getting, setting, removing, checking whether you have an attribute or not. I hope you learned something new. Now, I want you guys to realize something, that all this that I'm showing, it might feel little trivial, but it is very powerful. You think about doing all this thing dynamically with some events. You have a button to click, you do something. Basically, you're calling any of this method. Now, on this one, what you can do, you have an image. You know how to add an image, index.html file. Excellent. Now, you have three buttons. In one button, it says aspect ratio 1:1. So, dynamically, you will set an attribute height and width. You will add 200 pixel as height and width. Another button will say only height. So, width you will remove. You know what to do that. Another button will say only width. So height you will remove and you will keep only width. So like that, you can actually build small application based on your wish, your will. That's what I was saying in the beginning of the video itself, that you can dynamically change the web page at your will. So with whatever you are learning section by section in this video, please pause and do some creativity by yourself. You know how to do it now. By this time, you got to know a lot of stuff already. You just need to put your creativity to practice these things out. Please do that. Then only you'll enjoy. Then only things won't be sounding monotonous. Then only you will really enjoy working in JavaScript. All right. So now let's get into one of the most important aspects, is about traversing or navigating DOM. Traversing a DOM means, or navigating through a DOM means, is navigating through DOM's hierarchy. You want to start with the parent node, want to go to the child node. From child node, you probably want to go to a sibling. From a sibling, you want to go to again its children. From the children, you want to go to again parent. From parent, you want to go to grandparent. So like that, in the DOM trees, you want to just move around. That's what is called traversing. You know what? So far, as the DOM element, we envisioned only the HTML element. But there could be more things. There could be a text, just a text without any HTML element, like a text node. There could be a comment in your HTML, right? That's what is called comment node. So there could be variety of things in your HTML that actually gives you the node, and those node gives you the entire DOM hierarchy. Element node is just one type of node we have learned in the last video itself. Now, as you know, the difference between the node and the element very clearly, I think we should be talking about some of these methods that people get confused about, that what are those methods and why there are two such methods existing, when to use what. Let's try to break those myths. Okay. The first method that we are going to talk about for navigating through DOM is called parent element or parent node. So there are two methods here. One is called parent element and another is called parent node. So let us see what is parent node, what is parent element. And for that, let me add a HTML structure for you. I have this HTML structure, very simple structure. I have a div. Inside the div, I have a p tag. Inside the p tag, I have a span, and inside the span, I have a text. Correct? Now, what I'm interested in, I'm going to get one of this child element, considering this is a parent element. This div's child element is p. This p's child element is the span. This div's grandchild element is the span. Span's parent is the p. Span's grandparent is the div. That's how I'll be reading, right? So let us pick up this span using this ID. Get element by ID text is going to give me this span. So const span equals to document dot get element by ID, and I'll pass text. So I got this span. Now on this span, I'm going to invoke these two methods. One is console.log of span dot parent element. Let me put some string also here so that I can identify parent element. And next one I'll put as parent node, and the property over here is the dot parent node. What is node? What is an element? Node is everything that gets attached into the DOM from the document, from the body and there, including the text node, the comment node, everything. Elements are the one that represent the HTML element. That's the difference. So what will print for parent element? What will print for parent node? Let's see. So I see over here for parent element, it has given me p class info, and for the parent node also it has given me p class info. There is no difference basically. So why it is giving me p class info? Because span's parent is p class info. So the parent element and the parent node, both you can use on an element to get this parent element. So the span dot parent element and span dot parent node, I can actually now take it in a variable and can do whatever I want to do with it. Now, which one you should use? I think you can use any of them. There is no hard and fast rule that you should be using parent node or the parent element, because both returns the element itself is in its parent element itself. So whether you use parent node or use parent element doesn't matter. But one thing to notify over here, whether you use parent node or parent element, you can recursively use the parent element or the parent node on a return element from the parent node and the parent element calling to traverse upwards. So span.parent element has given me this p. Now on top of that, if I do another time parent element or parent node, this is going to give me this div. You want to check that? So on the parent element, if I do dot again parent element and parent node, if I want to do again parent node, in both the cases, I am going to get that div element back. You see that parent element is div, parent node is div. So like that, you can start with one particular element, query that element, can do parent node dot parent node or parent element dot parent element. You can traverse back towards the up, towards the parent. That's how you reach to the grandparent. Now parent is done. How about the child? So similarly, you have two more methods for child. One is called children, which we have seen some time back, isn't it, for removing? And another one is called child nodes. Between parent element and the parent nodes, there is not much difference. You can use them interchangeably. But between children and the child nodes, there are differences. Differences comes from the fact what they return. The children return an HTML collection we have seen, which is an array like. We know that. But child nodes return a node list. Now you know the clear difference. If you get an array like, to perform any array operation on top of that, you have to first convert that into an array and then you have to perform the operation. But if you get a node list, you can perform the array methods like for each straight away. You don't have to do any kind of conversion, right? So based on your need, definitely you will work on it. Another important thing is child node returns all the nodes, irrespective whether it's an element node, comment node, text node, whatever the node. Children return only the element, only the HTML element. If I go to this guy again, after this p, if I add one comment, say I am adding, how you add the comment? The less than exclamatory, two hyphen, then you add the comment, end it with again two hyphen greater than symbol. I have added a comment here. Now if you do dot children from here, you get this main id is div and do a children here. Now if you query this div using this id and do a dot children, this is going to return you only its children, which is the element. But if you do child node, this is going to return you this paragraph and also going to give you this particular comment, because this is also another node. This is a comment node, not an element, but is a node. Okay, it's clear the difference. So let's do that. The id is main hyphen id. Let's copy. And coming here, let us do const main id equals to document dot get element by id. I will pass the main id. So I get the div over here. Similar to this, I'm going to print out two console.log now. One, I'll say children, which will give me, this is not main id. This I should say main element dot children, and this will give me child node, and I'll say main element dot child nodes. Let's see what they print first. So first one is children. Children has given me an HTML collection. I can expand it, and it has given me p.info, because inside div there is only one element, that is this p, but there are multiple nodes. One node is p, another node is surely the comment, right? So let's see what comes out as a node right now. And also inside p I have a span and all these things, right? So let's see that. So for child node, interestingly, there are 5 elements and the type is node list, as we know. Now if I expand, it has a text, then it has p.info, then it has the text, then it has a comment that we have added, then again it has text. What is the text? Let me expand. So text is nothing but a slash n, means a new line. Then I have p.info, as usual, the paragraph. Then I have another text, basically another new line. I have given an enter. Then the comment, right? The comment we have. If I expand that, I'll be able to see the comment. The data is I have added a comment here. Then after that, again, there will be new line. So there is another text. So each of these thing are node, right? So when you have child nodes, it is going to give you each of these nodes. Now, based on your use case, most of the cases when you're dealing with the tags in the HTML and you're manipulating them dynamically because you want to build a dynamic web page, you won't be using child nodes. You will be using just children to get the elements out of it, element nodes out of it, and then do things on top of that. But there might be cases where you have to query the child nodes. That time, please use child nodes, don't use the children. I hope this differentiation is clear to you. Now there are few more methods. For example, I have this main ID again. If I want to get the first child, I can do dot first child. That will give me the first child. If I want to get the last child, I'll do dot last child. The first child and last child again going to return me the node. But if I want only the element, I'll do dot first element child dot last element child. So let's see those as well. For the time being, I'm just removing this console.log so that it doesn't pollute my console on the DevTools. I have this main element, right? So let me put a couple of console.log. Console.log of first child. I have the main element dot first child. But if I want first child element, I will rather call first element child. Okay, so this will give me the node, this will give me actual element. Inside this div, the first child, first node is the slash n. After this, I have an enter. So first thing will come back as a text. But if I'm looking for the first element child, that slash n will be ignored. It will give me the which is the first HTML element after this div as a children, which is the p. So I will see those differences in the output as well. So first child I got as a text as expected. This will be slash n, that is the enter, and the first child element is basically, or the element child is the paragraph. So you got the point. That is the difference. You have to always differentiate in your head between node and element. Node means everything, including slash n, including comment, including element. But element is only those which is mapped to the HTML elements. So based on that, you will basically query this methods. Based on that, you'll be using this method. Just like first child, you have last child. Just like first element child, you have last element child. Again, just like these two methods, we also have the method for the siblings. I explain what is sibling. What is the sibling over here? This li is this li sibling. This li is this li sibling. This p is this h sibling. Now, there are two ways you can actually traverse through siblings. One is called next sibling, another is called previous sibling. Next sibling, select the node, the next node on the same level of your element. So if I pick this h1 and call dot next sibling, this is going to give me a slash n text, because after h1 I have given a enter. That is a text node. That text node is what next sibling is going to return to me. If I do next element sibling, that is going to ignore that slash n, that text node, and give me what is the next HTML element, which is going to give me the p. If I do previous sibling, staying here on this div, the previous sibling is the what? The text again, because just before this div there is a slash n. But if I do previous element sibling, it is going to give me this p. So again, bunch of things that you should try out, and this is what I am not showing you. This is another task for you. Try out all these four, create a structure like this, h1p, a bunch of things at the same level, get the top level element. Maybe I'll create a structure for you, just wait on. I'll create a div like this. Inside this, put a h1, say something, then put a p, say something more, then put another p, say something even more. Now you have this. Then on the h1, add an id, something id. Here add another id, something id2, and here add another id, something id3. Now access this particular p, something id2. Do a previous sibling, previous element sibling. Here do next sibling, next element sibling, and then compare the output. Understand whatever I explained, that for next sibling, previous sibling, it is going to give you the nodes. It can be text node also, but for the next element sibling and the previous element sibling, it will give you the element. So that's all in terms of traversing through the nodes, basically navigating through the nodes. If you know this much, you are pretty much comfortable using, adding, removing things from the hierarchy within your logic. We'll see some, on the upcoming project as well, and the bigger task that I'll be leaving for you. Okay, let's move to the next one. Let us now focus on manipulating styles. So let's do some styles. When it comes to HTML, each of the HTML tags gets an attribute called style, using what you can write inline style. For example, I can give a background color to this particular P tag with a color, say, green. If I want to give a text color, I'll use the color attribute, give a color, either a color code or the color name. Now, if I see this on UI, I definitely see this paragraph, let's do some style with the background color green and the foreground color or the text color with white. But often you will be doing this styling dynamically. And that's why you have to know like how to manipulate this particular style attribute to put more style into it. Now I have some style added to it, isn't it? Let's add an ID to this P tag saying PID so that I can query it. Coming here, let's do PLM equals to document dot get element by ID, and here I'll be passing PID. So I got the element. Now on this element, I can do a console.log of PLM dot style. This is going to give me all the style attribute. Now on the style attribute that I have already specified the value, we'll be able to see the value also. For this P tag, I have already specified the value for background color and the color. Rest of it I have not done. So let's see on the UI, I have this CSS declaration. This is the style. If I expand, are you seeing? You have already zeroth element as a background color that is set. First is the color that is set. These are the two things that are already set. I have said that. If I go below towards background color, I can see even the value I have set, which is green. If I try to look for color, I am seeing RGB 255, 255, 255, which is nothing but white. So it means whatever the values I have statically set, I am able to read it. But that is not the only advantage. Advantage right now is dynamically I'll be able to set the color. Now, if I come to my code over here, as I have this p element style, I can now do plm dot style dot. The moment I do dot, all the properties will be listed. I can take the background color property again and now can assign a new color, say pink. Now, if I go to UI, I definitely see this in the pink color. Do you see this? I'm seeing this in the pink color. One thing to specify over here, if you come to HTML, the way that you are writing this attribute's name is background hyphen color. Here it is single word is fine, but for the multi-word, it is always separated by an hyphen. We have learned in the object session, right, that if your property is having a special character, you cannot really read the property value using the dot notation. Correct, na? We have learned that. For that, you have to use a square bracket notation. You have to pass the property name as a string to that square bracket. That's the same reason when we are either getting the value of a style property or setting the value of a style property, as we have to use the dot, we cannot use this special character in the key name. That's the reason it has to be used as a camel case. So the same background color over here is in the camel case, where the first word's first letter is the small case and the next subsequent word's first letter is in the capital case. But when it comes to HTML, the same property is written using hyphen, the hyphen as a separator, background hyphen color. All right. So this is something that you have to keep in mind wherever you are dealing with a style property which is multi-word separated by hyphen. When it comes to JavaScript, it has to be in a camel case. Remember this. As you now know how to manipulate styles, you can always improvise further, create an HTML element, don't add any style to it, have a button, on a click of a button, add some background color, do some styling to that particular element and see how it looks on your UI. Take this task, do this task. That's when you will learn it better. Okay, after manipulating styles, the next thing is like doing style using classes. To learn manipulating classes, let us do some modification to one of the existing HTML block. For example, this div, we already have an ID. Let us add one class. To add a class, you use the attribute called class. And let's add a class name called main-class. All right. Now coming to index.js file, I can access this div in multiple ways, right? I can access this div using query selector, using the ID, or using the class. I think it makes more sense that I do it using ID because there could be multiple div. I cannot do with query selector, and the class can be repeated in the multiple elements, not necessarily only with div. This particular class can be repeated with other p, h1, wherever it is. If I do by class name, I'll get div, h1, p, all those elements. But I want only this div uniquely, so I'll be using ID. Let us get const main div element equals to document dot get element by id, and I'll be getting it with main hyphen id. Okay, so I have this div. Now this div having a class. What you can do in JavaScript using classes, you can really manipulate those classes and its values dynamically from JavaScript so that the appearance, the look and feel of that particular element can be changed dynamically. With style, we can definitely do, but the style is inline. You have to remember these things, that writing style inline may not be a great practice because the reusability is taken out. Leaving the tailwind out with the raw CSS, it is always advisable that you start writing your CSS in a .css file, and then you include that .css file into your HTML, and then you call the classes on the element to manage your style. That's the whole reason we told that the class name can be repeated. If you are writing the style inline over here using this kind of style, if you need the similar style which is background color green and the color white, you have to again repeat the same line for all those elements wherever you need it. But if you are managing using the CSS file, you can define one style, say main class, with the same attribute background color green and the foreground color white. Wherever you need, you don't have to write all this long thing. You just mention class equals to main class. The same style will be invoked every places. So this is the major difference. Let us do one thing. Let us create an index.css file. And coming to the HTML, under head, let us link this CSS using link colon CSS. And the CSS file name is index.css file. So now this index.css file will be loaded in this HTML. So any style that we write over here, what is the style that we have defined for this div is called main class. I can write this main class over here and can define the style. So the style that I want to define is font size. Let's do it large. Let's have a padding of 2 pixel. Let's have a border of 2 pixel solid red color. Let's have a background color of pink, and let's have a border radius of 5 pixel. Now any text inside the div will be in the large font, and then the element will have some padding. We have given a border, background color, and the border radius. As this element already added into the UI, I should be able to see this happening. Yeah. So this is the one I'm able to see. I love DOM having a red border, a pink color background, and some amount of padding. We are able to see this, and the text is also larger. That's excellent. Now the next thing is what we're going to do. We want to manipulate this CSS using the JavaScript. So first of all, let us see that how to know what kind of CSS thing has got added over here and how can I modify this. So I have this main div element. If I do console.log of main div element dot, do I have something called class name? Oh yes, I have something called class name. Let's see what is the output of this. The output of this is main class because that's the class name we have added. Now in my CSS file, I'll just copy this one and create one more class, and I will name it as secondary class. Here font size I'll keep large, padding 2 pixel, but the border color from this I'll change to green, and the background color from this I am changing to teal. Now coming to my JavaScript, I have this class name property through which I can get what is the class name, but the same property will help me now to set the class name as well. So if I do main div element dot class name equals to the other class name over here, secondary class, you will be able to set the new class over here. And if you want to print it after that to check whether the class name has set correctly or not, you can also do that. And on the UI also, you will be able to see the change getting reflected. You see this? Now from the red and pink, it become green and teal. It was main class before, now it is secondary class. Now again, my ask will be same. You can have a button, you can have a div like this. On click of it, you can just change the classes and then see like whether the color is toggling or not. So class name property is something that gives you the current class that is associated with your element, and with the same property you can read and set. You can read and replace. You are able to read it over here, you are able to replace the current class name as well. However, there is a limitation of this particular property. Often you will do something like this. Over here, along with main class, you might want to have one more class. Say layout. This is the class you have. Now this layout class you can define in your CSS dot layout, and you can say display flex direction column. So you have defined a layout. As you are seeing that I can define multiple classes over here. But what will happen into my UI right now, though I have defined this, I can see that previously it was main class and layout. There were two classes. But when I replace that with the secondary classes, both of them got wiped out, replaced with just one class. But what if I want to have a situation that I want to replace only main class? I'm not at all interested in replacing the layout at all. So I want to start with main class and layout. If there is a button click happen, I want to replace the main class alone and just want to put secondary class. How am I going to do that? So their class name is not a very flexible solution for us. For that, there is a property called classLIst. So let's learn about classLIst now. The main purpose of the classLIst property is that it helps you to add and remove classes. You can toggle classes. For that also there is API, there is methodologies there. We'll see that. You can replace your existing classes with the new class values, and also you can do the conditional checking whether a particular class is already added to an element or not. So we'll take the same element like our main div element and we'll work on this. Okay. So instead of checking class name, now let's do a console.log of the property called classLIst. And let's see what it prints. I'm going slow, I'm going step by step because there might be a lot of beginners who would like to understand these things step by step. That's the reason. If you already know all of these things, take it as a revision or the brush up for you. So what it returns something called a DOM token list. And inside the DOM token list, you are able to see certain things got added. There are two things. It's like an array, a DOM token list. It has indexed element. The first index is the main class. Second index is the layout. Length is of course 2. And the value of its main class space layout. If you go back to our index.html, that's exactly I have added to my class. So classLIst now giving me a data structure. And whenever I get a data structure, it is easy for me to manipulate. It gives me an array like data structure. In this, I already have indexed element, main class and layout. So you are able to get it right. I will be able to read it with 0th index, first index, will be able to replace thing as well. But along with all this index thing, if I go and expand the prototype of DOM token list, I will be able to see a bunch of useful methods. For example, add. So using the add method, I'll be able to add a new class. Contains can check whether a particular class is already added there or not. Remember in the array master course, we spoke about entries, which gives what index and value as an array iterator it returns. Then the for each for looping purpose. So you have a bunch of things. Remove, you want to remove a class. Replace, you want to replace a class. So bunch of methods that are available for us to play around. Let's look into them with the example. So let's add a class first. We have the main div element dot class list. It has the method called add, and let us add a test class. Let's see if the test class got added. Now of course there are no visible differences because I have not defined the test class into the CSS file, but I should be able to inspect this element and I should be able to see that the test class has been added over here. We're able to see the test class. Great. Now let's do few more things. Let's do a remove. We already know that the layout class is added to this. So let us remove the layout class. So main div element dot class list dot remove and then pass the layout. So now we have removed the layout class. If I go to UI, I should be able to see only the main class and test, because test we have added dynamically before, and after that I have removed the layout class from here. Now let's look into something called replace. So what are you going to replace? We already have main class now added. We are going to replace the main class with the secondary class. Let's do that. So main div element dot class list dot replace, and I want to replace the main class with the secondary class. So now main class will be replaced with the secondary class, and if I go to UI, I should be able to see the green color back because now secondary class has been applied over here. and test was already there. So that's why you're saying if with class name you had to replace the entire piece, but now I can selectively replace the thing, which is a very big thing to happen. Now next thing is like we have a method to check whether certain class has been added or not, and that method name is contains. So how can I do it? I can do console.log of does it have test, and then can do main div element dot class list dot contains and pass the test over here. So this is supposed to return me true. Let's take one more example of that might return false. Does it have main class? Main hyphen class over here. We know that main class we have replaced over here, so there is no chance main class will be there. But test, once we have added, we have not done anything with it, so test will be there. So let's go back. In the console, we can see, does it have test? True. Does it have main class? No. There is a method called toggle inside class list. It first internally checks, like how we do with contains, whether a class name has already been added or not. If the class name is already added, it removes it. If the class name is not there, it adds it. So it actually saves you from writing multiple line of code. Otherwise, you had to write an if to check whether it is contains. If it is contains, then remove it. If it doesn't contain, then add it. You have to do all this check. To save you from all this check, it does a toggle. So if I do main div element dot class list dot toggle, let's do test first. So first toggle, what will happen? Test is already added. So that means test will be removed. I don't see test over here, isn't it? Test is removed. Now if I call toggle again with the test just in the next line, I will see test is back. You see this? Test is back. So if you call once, it will first check whether the test is there or not. If there, remove. Again, if you call, it will check test is there or not. If it is there, remove. If it is not there, add. That's what the toggle is. We are going to see a project using toggle very soon. So that's all about manipulating classes. Hopefully you found it helpful. Hopefully you will bring your own creativity to do something with them. That's what I will say always. Don't go by just what I'm teaching. Put your own brain, put your own creativity, create projects with it. Next thing we are going to learn is called controlling visibility. And I think some of this we have already seen in the last video, if I'm not wrong, but let me just repeat them once again very quickly for you. So you can control visibility using the style attribute. And there are few things through which there are few sub properties or the properties of style through which you can control the visibility. Let's go to index.html file. Let's take the same div. It has a main ID. So let's query this. Now I have this main div element. Now on this main div element, I will definitely have style. On this style, I will have a property called display. Using this display property, you can now control the visibility. You know that now this div is shown, right, on the UI. Now if I just do no any none, display none, this will be hidden, so it will hide the element. So here you won't be able to see this div at all. The div was with the pink color background, you're not able to see it. But if you want to show it all the time, you will just change it to block. So once you do the block, it is shown over here. Now one thing, just observe very carefully. This div is sitting between an image and a big text called something, and it is occupying some space over here. When we did display none and come back and see it on the UI, I don't see that space anymore, isn't it? The space is gone. Some image and then there is something. Now I'll bring it back again for you. Block, I see it again, a big space it occupied. So it means that when I do display none, it gets hidden, and is get hidden in such a way it feels like it's never ever there on the web page. However, it is there in the DOM. If you inspect the DOM, you can still see the element. And now instead of display none, if I just do one more way, I still take the style, and then it has a property called visibility. Now this visibility property can have a value called hidden. Now if I do hidden, you see the changes. You see the space is still there, but it's just that the element is hidden. So that's the difference between a display none and a visibility hidden. In case of display none, it hides the element, and it is hidden in such a way that you feel like the element itself is not there. So it doesn't take the space also of that element. But if you do visibility hidden, instead of doing display none, it gets hidden, but the space, whatever it has taken, the space will be still visible. So you're able to see the space over here for that div. So I hope you remember this difference. And there is other ways that you can actually control the visibility, is something called opacity. So we have this element. On this element, we again have style. On this, we have something called opacity. Now this opacity can traverse between 0 to 1. 0 means it's completely hidden. If I give 0 and come back, I don't see it. It occupies the space, but I still don't see it. Now, if I give 0.5 and if I come back, I see it, but you see it, it is showing a bit transparent. It is not very clear. Now, if I give completely 1, by default, the value is 1. It will be fully visible now, right? So opacity is another way that you can actually control visibility. I hope you'll remember display block, display none, visibility hidden, and the opacity value. So with that, now we are done with all the things that we actually wanted to learn in terms of theory plus the examples. Now it's time to start building projects. So let's do one small project and one little bigger project and then take the task. Our first project is comparatively a very simple project. What we're going to do, we are going to do a toggle paragraph project. I have a button which says show and hide paragraph, and there is a paragraph written over here. Clicking on this button, I am going to show and hide this paragraph below. So I'm going to do some kind of toggle functionality. That's how the project is about. So going to the code that is written so far, under day 18, I have created a new project folder. Inside project, I have a toggle folder because this is a toggle project. And in the toggle, I have created 3 files. Very simple. These are the things that you guys already know. I'll start with UI.html. So UI.html is having that h2 tag toggle paragraph example. Then that button that is going to do show and hide paragraph. I have added a class called action, and there is an ID so that I can actually select or access this button later point in time. Similarly, there is an initial paragraph which is having a class called info, and then there is an ID called my paragraph so that I can access this paragraph. This info class and the action class are defined is in the UI.css file, which I have already linked UI.css file. And UI.css file having info, some attributes, action, some attribute. These are the things we have already done while explaining you the DOM manipulation features. So nothing new to it. And then the HTML is also having a logic.js file, which is empty because we are going to write the logic now. So first thing first, so far with the event handler, we have only learned that how to add an event handler at the HTML level. All other event handling mechanism will be learning in the next session when we'll be learning deep about the events. But right now I know that if I have to call something on the button click, because button click only I have to show and hide that paragraph, I will use this on click. The function that I want to write is something called toggle info. Now this toggle info, where it should exist, toggle info should exist in this logic.js file. So here I have to define a function toggle info. And here first thing, how I like to test console.log toggling. I'll go back to UI and clicking on this, I should see toggling. Every time I click on this, that means the attachment of the action, function, and the UI element has been done. Let's continue the code. So the first thing I want to do over here is this particular paragraph I want to access. Button probably I don't have to access now because I have already attached this click handler here. If I hadn't done this way, I had to access this button using this ID in my JavaScript, and then I will be doing something called add event listener. We'll be seeing that later. Now I want to access this paragraph using this ID. So let's do that. My paragraph I'll copy. Coming to my JS file, const para equals to document dot get element by ID, and then pass this my paragraph. So I have this paragraph very clearly. Now on click on this paragraph, the best way that you can perform this toggle is using the toggle method on classLIst that we have learned, correct? So on the para, I will have something called a classLIst. On that, I will have a method called toggle. Now on this toggle, we know we can pass a class name, and whenever this function gets executed, whenever this line number 7 get executed, it will check whether that particular class name has already been added into this para element, then it will remove it. If it is not added, then it will add it. So I can add a class called hidden, and I can define this hidden class as in my CSS file dot hidden saying display none. We know display none means it gets hidden, and even the hide that it occupies, that also goes off as if it is completely invisible. So that means whenever this button gets clicked, toggle info gets called, this particular paragraph, the hidden class is not added, it will add. The moment it gets added, display none attributes get added. Display none means it will be hidden. Next time again I am clicking on this button means again toggle info gets called. Again this particular line gets executed and it will check, hey, hidden is added there. Yeah, it's added there. Now remove hidden. The moment I'm removing hidden, the display none is also getting removed. So by default it is display blocked. So it will be again shown. Now I can try it out. Is get hidden. If I click here, shown, hidden, shown, hidden, shown. So we have implemented a project where we can toggle this paragraph. You can go ahead, you have the code, you can modify this one as per your wish. You can change the paragraph to div, you can add a background color, you can do whatever you want along with the toggling. So please try to play around with it. Let's go to our next project, which is going to be a little bigger project, and you are going to have a massive task from that. Yes, the next project is about the task manager. We are going to build a task manager, but I am not going to code this task manager all alone. I'm going to get started with it, and as part of your task, you are going to complete it. All right. So what is this task manager about? You can add a new task by typing something over here and adding a task. The task will appear somewhere at the below, and then you can filter the task by typing some text about it, and you can filter it out. The filtering part that we have already taken as a project in the last video, it should not be new to you. But what is going to be new to you is like the DOM manipulation factor of it, that when you typing something over here, clicking on a button, modifying something at the bottom, those are the things. So let's get started with the code. Just like before, right now I have another project called to do. So I have a to do folder, and inside that I have a HTML. Let's understand. You saw the task manager heading, that is the heading H2. You saw the text box, this is the input type text box, and you saw a button at task, this is the button. Then I have a filter text box where you will be typing for filtering the task, and I have created a UL over here where dynamically I'm going to add the task, that the one that we'll be creating. So I have created this particular structure for me. This is the minimalistic structure I need in my HTML, so that rest of the pieces I can manage dynamically. As usual, I have a UI.css file which doesn't really have much other than styling some ULLI basic styling. I didn't wanted to waste my time typing that. And there is a logic file which is associated with it. In the logic.js file, I just have a console.log call project to do. That's it. Now let's get started with our logic. So as usual, coming to the UI.html file, I have to do something, right? I have to first associate a event handler to this button, and this button is for adding a task. So let's add an on click and say that on click, whenever somebody click on the button, this add task function will be called. Now I'll go to my logic.js file and going to define this add task over here. So function add task, this add task will be called. What are the things that I have to do inside this add task? My logic will be, whenever somebody typing inside this input box, I have to take what user have typed when somebody click on this button, and then whatever user have typed, I have to push inside this UL tag by creating a new LI. That is what my logic for adding a task. Again, from the UI, if I see, my logic for adding a task is, whenever somebody typing something over here and I'm clicking on add task, whatever user have typed over here, if I inspect this, I have this UL. You can see that orange color area getting highlighted. I have to add that whatever user have typed over here in that particular area. That's my first job for adding task. Now to continue with that, I need to grab this input text so that I can read its value. I have to grab this UL some way so that I can add a li with that value inside this UL. So how do we get this input, task input, and how can I get this task list? Of course, using document.element by id of task input. If I do like this, task input equals to document.getElement by id, I pass the task input, I get this input. I also need to get this UL, right? So similarly, I think I can do it is const self. Similarly, using const, I can do task list equals to document.getElement by id, task list, because task list is the ID of this particular UL. So both the things are with me right now. So to get what is the input that somebody has provided inside this particular input box, the value getting is pretty easy. So I can get the value like const task equals to task input dot value. So task input dot value is going to give me the task that user have input inside that input box. Now I can put a validation like this saying that if this task stream of it and if it is empty, that means the task is a blank task. Nothing, no character has been entered over there. Okay, somebody would have entered space, but I have trimmed it already, so I can return it from here very easily. Now my job is to create some li. You know how to create li? You can always do document.createElement. So using that, I can do const li equals to document.createElement li. Now the next job would be whatever the task that I have retrieved, the task I can put it inside this li. So I can do li dot inner text equals to the task, this particular value. Now, as I have created the li, the next thing, of course, I'm going to do is I have to append this li to this ul, isn't it? To this task list. So I will do task list dot append child, and then I'll pass this li. So every time somebody put an input inside the input box, click on the button, I am grabbing the value, and with that value, I am actually setting the text content of this new li and adding this new li to this ul directly. So far good. Let's see the UI. So let's try to add something without adding. Nothing is happening, right? Now let's do singing and say add task. I have singing over here. Great. Let's do dancing. I have dancing over here. Let's do coding. I have coding over here. Great. So it means now just writing a few line of code, I am able to now add this singing, dancing, coding, all this task over here. Now I can improve this further. For example, after user added a particular task, what I am seeing is whatever the added value, that value still stays over there. I want to clear it off. Now to do that, it is very easy. I already have the task input with me. So after the addition happen, I can do task input dot value and make it empty. So now I'm doing add task. Again, new task is getting empty. Now let's do some more enhancement over here. As we have the list of tasks, let us add a delete icon beside each of the tasks so that clicking on that we can remove the task from here, right? Now to add a delete icon beside each of the tasks, it is very easy, right? Whenever I am adding this task over here, I can now create one more button as an element, and that button inner text I can add maybe a cross text for now or a cross emoji, and then provide some style to that, and then I can add that button to this same li. If I inspect it, this is how you should be thinking about DOM composing, right? Inside ul, right now you are able to add this li. Now inside each of this li, apart from the text, what you want to do, you want to add a button also beside this text. That means you will be creating a button and then you will do a append child to this particular li. Then your button will come and place beside this text, right? So let's do that in code. Our first objective is to create a button. Now, one thing to remember over here, DOM is a hierarchy of node. It all depends how you want to structure your node and where you want to place each of the new node or new element you are going to create. You are seeing that this li, I am doing an append child to this particular task list. So ideally, whatever changes you want to do to this li should happen first, and then finally that li will be get added to in the node hierarchy wherever you want to. So here the changes you have already done, adding a inner text to this li, it means you will be setting a text value. Now if you want to add a button to it, the delete button for that particular task to delete, you have to perform that, and only after doing everything to this li, finally you will be adding this to your node hierarchy. This is something that you have to follow whenever you want to deal with DOM. So let us do this here. So we will do const delete button equals to document dot create element. We are going to create a button, so let's pass a button. This is our button. Now on this delete button, I can add an inner text saying that either you can add a text called delete or you can add a cross emoji. This is also looks like a delete. Now this delete button you have to add to the li. So you will be doing li dot append child and then add this delete button over here. Now I will be able to see this cross mark beside each of the text that you have added to the li. On the li, you have added a text, and after adding a text, you have created a delete button and also added the delete button to the li. Let's add coding as a task. So I see coding, and beside that, I can see a button got added. I can do some styling, right? I can give some gap between this text and the button, right, to make it look better. So there are two ways you can do right now. You have the delete button over here. If you want to add a style here itself, you can do dot style. You want to do a margin left, so dot margin left, and here you can give the value maybe 5 pixel. This is one way that you can manage the style. What will be the other way? You can do delete button dot class list dot add a class, and then go to the css file, add the class for that. That's the alternative way that you can manage. So now you should be able to see a little bit of gap between coding and this guy, right? If you see from the inspect in this li, there is coding and then there is a button, style is margin left 5 pixel, and you got to see this cross mark also. Awesome. We are incrementally building it. Now clicking on this button, you have to remove this li. That's the fun thing we are going to do. Whenever I am going to click on this, I am going to remove this entire li, entire line, because this task is what I am deleting. Correct now? So let's do that. Now to do that, we have only learned on click so far, right? So the on click, how we have attached to this elements, we have written on click equals to this particular function. If you want to attach the click handler using on click from your JavaScript, that also very much possible. So on the delete button, now I want to attach the on click functionality. So I'll be doing dot on click and then equals to, you have to write the functionality like on click on it, what is going to happen. Now again, two ways you can handle it. One is you can write a function inline. This is called writing a function inline. And if you write a function inline, you don't have to provide a name to this function. This can be an anonymous function like this. And inside this itself, you can write your logic. Other way could be you can define the function outside. For example, you can define a function called function delete task, and then this delete task you can assign over here. So there are two ways you can handle this. Okay. In this case, I would suggest we will go ahead with this anonymous function because this delete task we are not going to utilize anywhere else. And this is probably a single line of code. What will be that code? On clicking on this delete button, you want to remove the entire li. The entire li means on the li, this delete button is added. Where this delete button you have added? On this particular li. Correct? So this is an element already, and this will have a function called remove. Now you see everything that we have learned, we are making use of it in our project. So you can do delete button dot on click. On that, I'm calling an anonymous function or inline function, and then I am calling li dot remove. That means this current li will be removed. Let's go ahead and see this. Let's add coding, add task. Let's click on this. Gone. Okay. So this is working great. Now the next thing that we want to do, the next feature, is we can mark a particular task as completed. For that purpose, what I'm thinking that we can build very quickly is, let's add a task coding. I will add one more button with a tick mark, a tick emoji. If you click on the tick emoji, I will make this particular coding look like a strike through. That means this is done. Let's do that. So similar to the delete button, now I will add another button called complete button. And on the complete button, I will add an inner text and add the check emoji, this one. And after that, I can add this to the li dot append child. Let's add a task coding. So I see this button, I see this button. Ideally, I should bring the complete button first and then the delete button and have a space between these two, right? So let's fix that. Now to bring the complete button above delete button, I'll just cut this code and start putting it before the delete button code. Now it will come in the beginning, but I need to put some gap between this button and this button. As the delete already having a margin left, so there will be a gap already between this checkbox and this delete right now. Yeah, there is a gap, but there is no gap between the text and this. So it means on this also I can add a style with the margin left, so there will be a gap. So let me copy delete button.style.margin left. Let me put it here and then change this delete button to complete button. Now I should be able to see the gap. Now it looks perfect. If I click on it, my delete still works. And if I click on it, I have to now strike through this. Okay, so let's do that. You're seeing how we are building things like a Lego block, putting things one by one. That's the fun of understanding and doing programming. All right. So now on this complete button, we have to add a on click handler. Correct? So complete button dot on click. I can now do a function, and what this function is supposed to do, this function is supposed to make that text as strike through. Now to make that text appear strike through, we can control it using CSS itself. So on this li, I can now add a class using the class list. Always use class list on the class name, and then I can do an add, and let's add a class called completed. So first, let us test that if I now add a task called coding, add task, if I click on this, first I'll inspect this coding. There is no class added to this coding. If I check this checkbox, I see a class completed got added. Now, if I define this class completed, for example, if I create a class, I'm creating a class on the DevTools itself, and there is a li.completed already. And here, if I put something like text hyphen decoration and give the value line through, you see over here, it is already coming as strike through. So that means I can now copy this style completely. This is how you will be coding in your real life also. You'll be doing a lot of stuff over here, seeing things are working. Take it back to your .css file, which is like ui.css, put this class over here. That's it. I'll refresh everything. I'll say, let's add some task. Learning DOM, learning JavaScript, learning closure. Now, learning DOM we are doing right now. Learning JavaScript we are doing right now. Learning closure is done already. So I'm striking through. Now you can actually do it if you want to uncheck it. You can make this as a toggle. Correct, na? See the power of it. You can make this as a toggle. So let's do this as well. So instead of add, now you can call the function toggle over here. So what will happen? Learning closure. If I add a task, I click first time, check, click again, uncheck. Click, check, click, uncheck. So I hope this is clear to you. Both the functionalities are working great. Now, only thing remaining is the search task. I'm sure the search task should be very, very easy for you to implement. We have seen this in the last video, isn't it? Now, I'll be searching the task by typing something on this input field. I can call it a search task or filter task, either way. So for that, I need some handler, right, on this HTML. If you remember last time, in the last session, last video, I have done a similar kind of project with you. I had added an handler called onKeyUp and then associate a function called filter task. Here also same thing I have done. I'll go to my logic.js file and over here I'll do function filter task, and inside that I'm going to implement the logic of filter task. Now this is your task. So you have a bunch of tasks to perform. The few tasks I have already given you while talking through, while teaching you all about DOM manipulation. You'll be doing that. But this is a project that you need to complete. You have to implement the filter functionality and then you have to implement the edit functionality. If you see on our UI, we don't have any edit yet. So if I say coding, you can check it, you can delete it, but you cannot edit it. So second task is to add one edit button over here before delete. So first will be the check, then will be the edit, and then will be delete. Clicking on the edit button, you have to make this particular section editable. Or another way you can do is clicking on this, whatever is written over here, you can populate the same value over here and change the add task text to edit task. The moment somebody click on the edit task button, instead of adding a new task, the task that you are editing, that will be changed with the new value. Okay, I am leaving it to you how you want to do that edit. Clicking on the edit button, you can make this itself as editable, allow people to edit it, and then pressing on enter or pressing on some button, it will be edited. Or you can bring this in this particular field itself. But if you are going in this way, you have to make sure that you're also changing this button text to edit task. And clicking on edit task, when it is edit task, not add task, that time it should perform an edit operation. If it is add task, then it will be adding a new entry over here. This is how you have to manage. Little bit complex, but I want you to do it either of the way. And once you do it, I want you to share the link of your application, like how it is working. For that, you can deploy your application on Vercel, you can deploy your application on Netlify, Render, wherever. If you're new to deploying your application on any of these cloud services, those are all free services. Come to Discord. I'm going to help you out, like how to do it, or the community is there. That's going to help you out to how to do it. It's pretty easy, right? So this is the task, guys. You have to make sure that you are completing it. Again, look into all the task into the task.md file. I'm sure that you will be able to do it. So friends, we have learned a lot, isn't it? I have given my everything, I think, to teach you DOM manipulation in this video. We have learned how to traverse through different hierarchies, in the DOM, how to play with attributes, how to play with each of the elements, how to do with the styling, classes, everything. And these two projects, one simple project, one little complex project with Task Manager, I think is going to give you a lot of confidence in terms of doing project with DOM. One of the area where I have seen, and also rightly, I have taken a poll very recently on my YouTube channel. It says that doing project with the DOM is the most hardest thing. And that's what we need to break. We need to break it. We need to prove that we can do it very well. And if you follow everything that I am teaching you in these 40 days of JavaScript or in DOM, in the upcoming module with asynchronous JavaScript, after that with OOPS, you are not going to stay far. You will be really a rocking JavaScript developer, a solid JavaScript developer who can do JavaScript coding, who can build JavaScript project just with ease. Believe me, you can do this. All right, so I'll be coming back again with the next video where we'll be learning about events. We know about events a bit, but we'll be getting deep dive into it. So stay tuned. We'll be coming back soon. Keep learning. Be with tapaScript.